Hi folks, it's been a while since we put a new video up, but it's getting to be that time of the year. As you can see, the grass is getting green, so that means it's just about mowing season here where I live. So my first move, of course, was to take the deck off my Cub Cadet LTX 1050 and service it. So it's now upside down. You can see I cleaned off all the gunk underneath, the dried on grass, etc. And then I've sprayed it with there's a silicone spray from WD-40 brand that I'm hoping will keep the deck a little more lubricated so that the grass doesn't stick as well, and also to keep it from rusting, because it's a few years old. It's a number of years old, so I don't need to rust through on the deck. So that's sprayed and ready to go. I also pulled off all the mower blades, as you can see, and sharpened them. Can't see the edge because it's upside down, of course, but sharpened the face on the bench grinder, and then the back side I just touched up lightly with a hand file, because you want a flat edge on the bottom. You don't want to make an axe type blade on these. You just want a sharp edge on the top and a flat edge on the bottom. Another thing too that I did, this is the first time I've serviced these blades. I got the tractor last year, so I hadn't taken them off before now, but apparently whoever had these aren't new blades by any means. I'll probably replace them maybe next year, but they'll do for this year. They were rusted fast with the bolts. I mean, I had sprayed the nuts, the nuts on here. As you can see, one main nut holds it onto the shaft from the spindles. Sprayed them 2 or 3 times with WD-40 to try to get them loose, and then I ended up actually having to take my hammer and bang on the side of my wrench to break the seal, so to speak. So what I did was, after I got them all off and serviced and put back on, you can see there's a little silver there on top of the nut, the shaft of the nut. I actually put anti-seize on the threads of the shaft. That way they shouldn't ever get stuck like that again. I should just be able to take my wrench and just torque it and loosen them that way. I know I've talked about anti-seize here before in videos, and my son's the one who convinced me to start using it, and it does make a difference. It doesn't make the nuts loose that they come off on their own, but it does keep them from rusting fast. So it's a petroleum-based product. I don't know what all's in it, but it seems to work. So I did that on these. Now what I've got to do is I'm going to flip this over. I've got to replace the deck belt. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention to you. Now on this particular deck, they have, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this right there, each of these spindles has a grease fitting. I don't know how you could probably get this one from the side. You know, here's your discharge chute here. You could do it from the side with no trouble with it on the tractor. But these other two would be very difficult. There's a grease fitting on each one of these. And I think, aside from taking the deck off, the only other way you could get at it is if you could jack up the front of the tractor and kind of crawl underneath to reach them that way. But the two inner ones were certainly very dry. I put a fair amount of grease in each of those fittings. So don't neglect that. That'll save the life of your spindles and your the shafts here of your blades. Because if they are lubricated, they'll last a lot longer, run a lot smoother, etc. So that's a little thing that's different on this one than I've had with my others. My old 1811, the grease fittings were actually on top, so I could reach underneath the tractor, between the tractor and the top of the deck, and hit them that way. But these are actually underneath, so it's a little more tricky to do. They probably planned it that way, so you'd have to go to a dealer to get it serviced. I don't know, but don't neglect those either. I just use regular grease like I use for everything else, and a regular grease gun, nothing fancy about it. So let me flip this over and I'll show you what's going on with the deck belt. Okay, So what I need to do is change out this deck belt. Now, last year when I got this tractor, the deck belt that was on broke on me maybe, I don't know, a month into the mowing season. It was probably one of the originals or one that hadn't been changed in a while. So, and I know they go from time to time, and I know I'd replaced it. But this belt, which I did not get from a Cub Cadet dealer, I got it at Home Depot. It wasn't a bad belt, a Kevlar belt. But what happened is when this spindle, you can see the new replacement one there, went bad on me and it basically shredded. I didn't catch it immediately to see what the problem was, and it caused this little bit of damage here to the belt. See if you can see this on there. You can see it's ground down a little bit. Now this is still solid, and if I wanted to take the chance, I could just try to mow with it this year. But it makes no sense to me because it's going to break, obviously, because it's damaged. So why would I want to have to pull the mower deck back off the tractor later sometime during the summer to replace it? So it might as well, while I have it off now, replace it now. So I got another belt. This year, my Home Depot did not have this size belt. It's a 1/2 inch by 162 inches. The Cub Cadet version at Tractor Supply is like $72. I don't know what it is at the dealer. I didn't spend that much for this one. This isn't a Cub Cadet brand. It was another brand. But I know I didn't spend that much, maybe $40, $50. I can't remember. Apparently they do have them at some Home Depots, but mine doesn't in my area, so, you know. So my next move was to check Amazon, and I found a replacement belt on there of this size, also Kevlar, for about 30 bucks. Now we'll see how good it is. Again, it's a no-name brand, but with the price difference between that and the Cub Cadet equipment, you know, even if I don't get as long of use out of it, I mean, these things are going to go on you every few years anyhow because of the amount of friction and heat and stuff that's produced by them with torquing these decks all summer long, through the fall. You know, you're mowing for hours a week with it. They're going to wear out. They're replacement parts. So even if this one that I got doesn't last as long, if I buy 2 or 3 of them, ending up spending the same money as the Cub Cadet, why not? I mean, I'm going to be pulling this deck off at least once a year in the spring anyhow to service it, sharpen the blades, and clean it up, and so on and so forth. So why not just replace the belt, you know, as needed? So that way you have easy mowing through the summer. You're not dealing with maintenance issues, hopefully. One thing about this particular deck, these shields on here are metal. They design them that way for this particular Cub Cadet deck. I like that because they're solid and they're firm. The shields over the spindles on my older 1811 Cub were plastic, and eventually they wore out and they actually wore through. The deck belt was actually cutting through them from the underside, so they were kind of cheap. I mean, yeah, it was a 30-year-old one, so I'm not complaining, but these are nice. The only problem is you tend to get a lot of leaf material and grass material clogged in there. I just blew it out with my air hose from my air compressor to try to clean it out as best I could. But you do have some of that problem with this kind of deck, but I still like the metal. The more metal, less plastic, the better in my mind. Yeah, you have to worry about rust, but it doesn't break as easy. So I had somebody who watched one of my other videos ask me, could you show how you put the deck belt on? Because he was having trouble getting his on. And quite frankly, when I put this one on the first time I did it, I had trouble too. I ended up looking at a YouTube video, and I actually put it onto my phone so I could bring it out here with me to work in the shop, and I would kind of fast forward the video about 2 or 3 seconds at a time so I could see what was being done, because it is a bit complicated. You know, you got five pulleys to go in and around, actually 6 when you put it onto the PTO clutch underneath the tractor. So it's not easy. There is a diagram. I'm showing this upside down, I realize. There is a diagram right on the deck that shows you how it's supposed to loop. And it is possible to follow it, but if you're a little challenged mechanically, or it's hard to picture in your mind something from a diagram in real life, it could be a little tricky. So what I'll do is I'll try to walk you through this as I replace the belt, and then if you're somebody who's had trouble replacing the belt as well, hopefully this will be helpful to you. One thing I'd suggest is, if you're changing the belt, if you already have a belt on that needs to be replaced, take a picture of it with your cell phone to see what it looked like when it was attached, like this. Now I'll take a picture with my phone before I start into this. And then when I pull the old belt off, if I look at the diagram, doesn't make sense, I can at least look at, oh, there's the picture on my cell phone. Okay, I see the way it was. Okay. Now with this too, you've got some other issues here to have to deal with. You've got this tensioning spring here that holds this in place. I think I had to loosen that to get this. So you can't get the belt around either of these spindles because this bar in the back here is too close. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to loosen these bolts. At least loosen. I can't remember if I had to take them off exactly, but at least loosen so I could kind of tip the spindle a little bit, the pulley a little bit, to get the belt behind it. And I believe I had to take this tensioning spring off in order to do that. I just can't remember, but if need be, that's what I'll do. So just that makes it a little more complicated, but it's not undoable. I mean, it just takes a little longer to do it. So let me walk you through this, and we'll see if we can't get this thing back together. Still have to change the oil in the tractor and the filter, charge up the battery, and hopefully within a day or so, if I really wanted to, I could start mowing. I think my grass will be good for a day or two yet before I really have to get into it, but it's getting there. So hang in there, I'll be back. Okay, let me walk you through what I've done so far here. I'm sorry that I can't show me doing this on film because I need two hands to do this, and I don't have a second cameraman. I'm trying to do this one-handed anyway with the camera, but I need two hands to do this work. So I'll try to do this in phases so you can see at least what I did. Okay, the first thing I did was this tensioner spring was on this bolt here. I managed to pull hard enough to slip this off. Now there is a way that I'm going to have to put it back on. I can't do that by hand. What you can do is you can get a piece of wire around there and use that to pull on that if you can. I'll show you that later, but I managed to get that off, so that was a big deal. So that means now that this tensioning pulley here and this other spindle can be moved. Now I've already taken the belts off. First thing I did was I loosened this nut on here with so that I could tip this to pull the belt out, and then I can also move this retaining wire here to get the belt out. This is a let's see, yeah, that was a half inch. Now this one, to get this off, this bolt passes through the pulley, and it passes through this retaining this I'm sorry, here I'm trying to see without looking at the camera. It connects onto this, and then it goes through this fixed piece of metal on the deck. Underneath this pulley assembly is a nut that attaches to the other end of the bolt. So what I did was I used and this is 9/16. Use my 9/16 wrench, stick it under there, get a hold of the nut, and then while I'm doing that with the socket, I can turn it off. Again, neither of these did I have to take fully out to get the belts off, just loosen it. As you can see here, just by wiggling it enough, it was enough for me to pop it off from there. So that's the hardest part of taking this off, is just getting that tensioning spring and then loosening up both of those pulleys so that you can get the belts out from behind this retaining bracket here and the wire there. So when I put them back together, of course, I'll have to tighten everything back up. Then all I've got to do then is take the rest of the belt off here. I can probably even just show you doing that. Move my stuff out of the way. Because this belt just, this is the part that goes to the front to the PTO clutch on the tractor, but the rest of this is just, it just slips right over these pulleys on the end there. You just pull that out. Since that's loose, that's okay. That's not a big deal. Same thing here with this pulley. That's a leaf there. I was wondering what was holding me up there, but it wasn't really. And that just pulls out. And so then the only thing I've got left here is around this pulley. So there, it's completely off just with that simple way of doing it. Now, to put this back on, what I will do is I will work from the other side of the deck, because for one thing, the diagram is facing that way. And it'll probably be easier to slip it over those pieces that way. But we'll give it a try and see. It's a little tricky. But I've gotten the old one off, so now it's just a question of putting the new one back on. So I will, and then you have to have your slack up here in this last loop that goes onto the tractor, not on this, but on the loop that goes onto the tractor, and that just hangs there until you put the deck back underneath and reattach it to the PTO clutch pulley. So I'll come back if there's any other kind of tips that I can give you on the way of making sure you get your belt sequenced right as it goes around all this, because remember, it's a total of 6 pulleys here that you got to get it going in the right direction. And then I'll show you tightening things back up again. So I'll come back to you. Alright, now I put this on, but I'll walk you through what I did. First of all, please make sure when you get a new belt you get Kevlar wrapped. It's much stronger, lasts a lot longer, it's more resistant to tears and heat and friction. You don't want just the old kind of rubber belt. So that's what this was. I don't know what name brand this was, I can't remember. The package it came in from Amazon didn't have a name on it. I'll show you the one I got from Home Depot last year in a minute. I kept the sleeve from that so that I'd remember the size. But if you go on the Amazon website and put Cub Cadet Mower deck belt 1/2 inch by 162, it should come up for you. There were a couple options, and this was the one that was with tax about $30. So what I did was I unrolled the belt. You know, it was kind of coiled a bit. Unrolled it, laid it out on here, looped it over there. Now remember, these 3 pulleys, the concave side or the thinner side goes against the inside of the pulley. You can tell that because the slots on the pulleys are much steeper, or excuse me, deeper than these other 2 pulleys, and I'll tell you that in a second. So when you're putting it on, just keep that in mind, that the tapered side, the concave side, goes in to the pulley. So I looped it around there, brought it up around here, looped it around this one, and then ran it completely underneath all of this, all the way over to this pulley, and then I looped it around there. Now then, from there, you bring the belt down this way, and now it goes the opposite way. On these 2 pulleys, you can see they're not as deep, and they're not really concave, they're more flat. That's because it's the outside edge of the belt, or the thicker side of the belt, that's going to contact these 2 pulleys. So what you're going to do is bring this in like this. I tucked it in, got it in behind this bracket, and then I brought it up this way. This is the loop that's going to go onto the tractor, the power takeoff clutch pulley, and then brought it back down here to this one, lifted up this retaining wire bracket here, slipped it in there. Again, I tipped the pulley so that it could tuck in behind this bracket. Again, you're using the thicker side, the outside of the pulley is touching, or the belt is touching the pulley. Both on these are like that. And then you're coming back up here with the end of the thing back to your original starting point. So let me walk you through this again in case somebody didn't get it or you're a little confused yet. Spread your belt out. Run it over the top of this one, run it under here, around here, all along the bottom, underneath these, also underneath this bracket too. This bracket just move out of the way. Underneath, around that pulley, and then come straight down this way, and now you're going to use the outside edge to go around this pulley, come up with your loop, and come down from your loop, move your wire bracket here. I had this looser, I tightened it up by hand a little bit, so that these two stay separate, they're not rubbing against each other. And again, then the outside edge contacts this retaining pulley like that, and then you come all the way up to your beginning point. So now this is where it needs to be. All I need to do then is tighten down these two screws, or excuse me, these two bolts. Remember, this one's into the frame, so I don't have a nut underneath it, and this was, I think, the 1/2 inch if I remember correctly. Just tighten that down, and then this one was the 9/16, and I just have to get my my open end wrench underneath on the nut and then tighten that down. Once both of those are tight, then my final thing is going to be to pull this retaining spring, loop it back over this bolt, and I'll show you how to do that, kind of the final thing. I'll get everything else together here first. So it wasn't too difficult. Hope this helps anybody who had a problem with figuring out how to do this belt. It was trial and error for me the first time I did it. It took me quite a while, but now that I've done it once or twice now, it's not so tough. So I'll come. All right, I have those bolts tightened, and I have the spring ready to reattach. Now, this is a little trick I learned. I think I saw this in one of the other videos that I saw about this deck that this guy did, so it's not an original idea, but feel free to use it. All I did is I took a piece, I'm sitting on the floor here because that's how this goes, or how this works easy. Took a piece of wire. This is just, I think it's a roll of that cheap rebar tying wire you can get at Lowe's. I use that for just general applications here. It's fairly strong. Loop it around the hook on the end of the spring, and then on this end twist it tight, and then I stick a screwdriver right at the end of the twist. So all then that I have to do, and I can turn it to make sure that my hook is where I want it to be to get it over the bolt. So all that I really have to do then, excuse me, here doing this one-handed, I think I can do it one-handed. Goes easier two-handed, of course. So I got a good grip on the screwdriver, and I have my feet against the deck. It can't roll anywhere. And all I'm going to do is pull the spring straight, and boom, it's hooked right over. And as you can see, it's really not even hard to get the wire off afterwards. Just wiggle the handle on the hook on the spring a little bit, and then the wire will loosen right up for you. So that's all it was. Now, this is now ready to go. You can see everything is where it should be on the pulleys. Sorry. And I'm ready to slide it back under the deck, loop it around the pulley on the PTO clutch, and it should be ready to mow. So I will conclude this video with this, but I'll come back with another video after this. I've still got to change the oil in the tractor, so I'll show you how you do that, and then I'll have a final wrap up when everything's back together, and to show you that everything is working. I'm ready for mowing season. So thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful to those of you who might have needed some help with this. Please like and subscribe to our channel, and ring the notifications bell. You know the drill. And let others know about this channel. I know I haven't been posting too many videos on this channel lately, but now that we're getting back into outdoor working season around the farm, I'll probably have some more coming up. We've got gardens to prepare, and we've got tractors to work on, and all kinds of stuff. So hopefully there'll be more in the next few weeks or months than you've seen in a while. So thank you again for watching and for your support as we live on a shoestring out in the country.